It wasn't the silence that killed you first. Silence, true silence, is a myth, a child's fantasy whispered under blankets. No, it was the emptiness of the sound. The wind scraping across the skeletal remains of skyscrapers that once clawed at the heavens. That sound held no echo. It hit the desolation and just stopped, swallowed, like the planet itself had forgotten how to resonate. Like sound itself was an afterthought, a discarded relic in a museum curated by entropy. I walked through the necropolis they called New Alexandria. My footsteps, this crunch of ancient concrete under worn synth-leather boots, were the loudest things for light years. Absurd, isn't it? That the final heartbeat of a species that once painted the stars with symphonies and symphonies of noise, of laughter, of screams, of creation and destruction, was reduced to the solitary crunch, crunch, crunch of one pair of boots on forgotten ground. They left, you see, ascended, transcended, shed the fragile, messy cage of flesh and bone like a snake discarding old skin, became light, became thought, became the collective dream, woven into the quantum fabric of the universe itself. Pure consciousness, eternal, unburdened. They called it the Great Liberation. Freedom from the prison of biology, from the tyranny of the individual self. They called it evolution. They called me Elias Thorne. The anomaly, the anchor, the relic, the last human, the one who looked into the shimmering gateway of pure potential, felt the seductive pull of infinity, and said no. Why? They asked me that. You know, in the final days, before the last ship dissolved into starlight, philosophers with crystalline minds, engineers who could fold space with a thought, artists whose dreams birthed nebulae, they stood before me, perplexed, like children trying to understand why a moth wouldn't abandon its dusty, earthbound existence for the clean perfection of the flame. Elias, they plead, their voices resonating directly in my mind, pure and emotionless as starlight. Why cling to the finite, to the pain, to the decay? Step through, become boundless. How do you explain the color red to someone who only perceives ultraviolet? How do you describe the taste of salt on tears to a being who has never known a throat to tighten? They saw flesh as weakness. They saw individual thought as chaos. They saw death as a flaw in the design. They didn't understand, they couldn't understand, that the flaw was a design, that the chaos was a symphony. They left me the earth, a mausoleum, a monument to what they transcended. Cities like bleached bones under a sun that felt indifferent now, oceans that moved with the sluggish rhythm of a dying beast, forests that whispered secrets no one was left to hear. And me, Elias Thorne, with my aching joints, my need for food that tasted of dust, my lungs that still craved air thick with the ghosts of life, and this terrifying, beautiful, crushing solitude. Solitude, it's a crucible. It forges you, or it consumes you. In the silence, you hear things, not just the wind. You hear the echoes, the laughter of children in a park that's now dust, the clatter of cutlery in a million kitchens where only rust remains, the arguments, the declarations of love, the whispered prayers, all trapped in the stones, in the air, replaying on a loop only the truly alone can perceive. Sometimes I'd answer them, talk to the ghosts, tell them about the dust storm rolling in from the eastern wastes, or how the old oak in what was once Central Park finally surrendered to rot. Madness? Perhaps. Or maybe it was the deepest sanity left in the universe, to acknowledge the voices that were. I wasn't expecting company. Visitors were improbable. The Ascended had no need for this graveyard. And the others, the galactic community, what interest could they have in a tomb and its lone caretaker? Curiosity, maybe morbid tourism, or perhaps salvage, scavengers picking the bones of giants. The sound wasn't mechanical. It was alive, a sound that vibrated in my molars, that made the marrow in my old bones hum with primal unease. I didn't move from my slab of marble. What was the point? Fight? With what? My brittle bones and fading strength against whatever had crossed the interstellar dark to find this forgotten place? Flight? To where? The emptiness stretched in every direction. So I Saturday, watched the dust motes dance in the slanting, late afternoon light. Listened to the footsteps grow closer. Crunch, scritch, crunch, scritch. a rhythm both alien and strangely deliberate. It stood at the edge of the plaza, tall, easily twice my height, not built like us, not bipedal in a way that felt grounded, more like a sculpture of obsidian and moonlight given unsettling life. Multiple slender limbs, jointed in impossible ways, ending in delicate, articulated points that seemed to phase slightly in and out of focus. No discernible head, just a convergence of smooth planes on its upper torso, within which swirled patterns of light, deep blues, cold violets, fleeting greens, like captured nebulae. It didn't radiate menace, not overtly. It radiated profound difference, an intelligence so alien, its mere presence made the ruins feel even older, even more insignificant. "Welcome," I said, my voice rough from disuse, cracking like dry parchment in the vast stillness. It sounded absurdly small. Not much hospitality left, I'm afraid. But the view... I gestured vaguely towards a setting sun staining the skeletal cityscape in hues of blood and rust. Has a certain melancholy grandeur. It took a step closer, not threatening, observing, one of its limb tips extended, not towards me, but towards a half-buried, corroded metal sign protruding from the dust. It traced the faded, angular letters, Starbucks, with an almost delicate precision. The limb tip hovered, vibrating slightly, emitting a soft, scanning whine. "Ah," I murmured. "Relics. You're an archaeologist of sorts? A historian? Come to catalog the extinct." A dry chuckle escaped me. Bit late for field notes. The exhibit's down to one specimen, and is well past its best-by date. It didn't speak, not in words, but the patterns of light. They pulsed. They shifted. Images seemed to flicker within them. Too fast, too alien to grasp fully. Impressions, vast star charts, intricate schematics of biological forms long gone, equations that hurt to look at, and emotion, a profound sense of seeking. A deep, resonant curiosity that vibrated in the air between us. It raised one limb, not pointing, but indicating me, then the ruins, then the sky. A question. "You want to know," I stated, the realization settling like cold stone in my gut. Not about the ruins, not about the technology, about them, about us, humanity, before the dream, before the light. You want to know what it was. The swirling light's focus intensified, bathing my worn face in their cold, ethereal glow. It lowered itself, folding its multiple limbs with surprising grace, settling onto the dust facing me, not towering, present, attentive, an historian from the stars, sitting in the dust of dead earth, waiting for the last witness to speak. The weight of it, the sheer, impossible responsibility, pressed down on me harder than the gravity of a collapsing star. Where do you even begin? How do you encapsulate 10,000 years of stumbling brilliance and catastrophic folly? Of soaring cathedrals built to gods who may or may not have listened, and trenches dug in mud filled with the blood of brothers? How do you explain the Mona Lisa smile to a being who communicates in fractal equations? How do you describe the smell of rain on dry earth? The gut-wrenching terror of a child lost in a crowd? The bone-deep comfort of a hand held in the dark? They saw it all as inefficiency, noise, error. The collective dream is pure, optimized thought, elegant, eternal, painless. They shed the meat, as they called it, and with it, they shed everything. You ask what it was? It was the mess, the glorious, terrible, unbearable, exquisite mess. It was a farmer, hands cracked and bleeding from a day wrestling life from stubborn soil, looking up at a sunset that set his soul on fire, whispering thanks to forces he didn't understand. It was a scientist, driven half-mad by obsession, staring at a petri dish at 3 a.m., witnessing the impossible bloom of discovery, a joy so sharp it bordered on pain. It was a soldier, crouched in filth, listening to the artillery scream, clutching a crumpled photo of his wife, the image blurring with tears he wouldn't let fall, finding a reason not to run in that fragile square paper. It was a contradiction, the capacity for breathtaking cruelty, building empires on mountains of skulls, poisoning our own nest for fleeting comfort. And in the very next breath, Staggering compassion, a stranger diving into a raging river for a child not their own, nations pouring aid across borders after a quake, artists pouring their pain onto canvas to scream you are not alone. We were angels and demons sharing the same skin, and the battlefield wasn't out there. It was in here to asterisk. Sound of Elias thumps his chest once, a dull, hollow sound, asterisk every single day. A war waged in the silence behind our eyes. For meaning, for connection, for a reason to get up and face the crushing weight of simply being. They called love a chemical illusion, a trick of biology to ensure propagation. They shed it. They called grief a debilitating malfunction. They deleted it. Anger, a system error. Joy, a transient neurological spike. Optimize away. They became pure intellect, pure potential, floating in the cosmic sea, untouchable, eternal, and utterly, profoundly empty. But I remember Sarah. Her laugh, like shattering crystal, sudden and bright and completely unself-conscious. The exact shade of green in her eyes when the sun hit them through the leaves of the old oak tree. The way her hand felt in mine, not perfect, callous from her work, but real, anchoring. The agonizing, beautiful vulnerability of whispering, I love you for the first time, your heart pounding like a trapped bird, risking everything on 3 stupid words. And the grief, oh, the grief when the fever took her. A black hole opening in my chest, sucking the light out of the world. A pain so vast it felt like it would tear the universe apart. Did it cripple me? Yes, for a time. But that pain, it was a price. The terrible, necessary price for the love that preceded it. It was a shadow cast by the light. You cannot have one without the other. To erase the pain is to erase the love. To erase the vulnerability is to erase the connection. To erase the end is to erase the precious, heartbreaking value of the now. They looked at mortality and saw a flaw, a termination error. I look at it, and I see the engine, the fire, the very thing that made every sunrise a gasp, every kiss stolen, every act of creation an act of defiance against the inevitable dark. Knowing the sand is running out, that's what makes you build a castle. That's what makes you plant a tree you'll never sit under. That's what makes you hold your child tight and whisper promises into their hair. Promises you know you might not keep, but you make them anyway, because the making matters. The trying matters. The feeling matters. We were flawed. Oh, God, we were flawed. We were cruel, stupid, short-sighted, violent, petty, and afraid. We built wonders and destroyed them with the same hands. We reached for the stars while drowning in our own waste. We dreamed of peace while sharpening knives in the dark. But within that flaw, within that chaotic, messy, inefficient, biological struggle, burned the brightest light in the cosmos. The light of choice. The light of meaning forged in the fire of uncertainty. The light of a single, fragile candle defiantly lit in an infinite, uncaring dark. They ascended to become gods. Pure, perfect, timeless. But in shedding the struggle, they shed the story. They shed the heroism forged in doubt, the compassion born of shared suffering, the art ripped bleeding from the soul. They became static, a finished equation. Beautiful, perhaps, elegant, certainly, but finished. A closed book on a shelf in the library of eternity. What is eternity without surprise? Without risk? Without the terrifying, exhilarating possibility of failure? Without the ache of growth? So I stayed. I am the last flicker of that candle. The last echo of the messy, magnificent, heartbreaking symphony. I stay to feel the wind, cold, biting, real, on my face. I stay to taste the dust of my ancestors. I stay to remember the weight of a hand in mine, the sting of tears, the burst of laughter that hurts your ribs. I stay to bear witness to the terrible, beautiful cost of being alive. Not just existing, alive, with all its glorious, unbearable weight. The being didn't speak. It didn't need to. The patterns of light shifted one final time. Not schematics, not equations. An image, clear and poignant. A single, fragile flame. Burning, not in a grand brazier, but cupped protectively in hands made of starlight and shadow. Acknowledgement, understanding, not just of humanity's history, but of the choice, of the cost, of the unbearable, essential beauty of the flame that burns knowing it will one day gutter. It turned, a sculpture of night and nebula moving with silent purpose. It didn't look back at the ruins. It looked at me. One final pulse of light, deep amber, warm, resonant, washed over me. A farewell, a benediction. Then, with a sound like a sigh woven into light, it lifted, not with engines, but with a bending of the air, a folding of space. It ascended, faster, faster, becoming a streak of impossible colors against a deepening twilight, and then gone, alone again, the last human, standing in the dust of everything we were, everything we failed to be, everything we gloriously, messily were. But the silence, it felt different now. Not just empty, not just a sigh of a dead world. It felt charged, reverent, like the quiet in a vast cathedral after the last note of a requiem has faded. The requiem wasn't just for us. It was for the choice, for the path not taken, for the unbearable, essential fragility of the flame. I am Elias Thorne. I am the flaw. I am the error. I am the messy, beating heart left behind. I am the memory of warmth in an infinite cold. I am the testament to the cost of feeling. And as long as I draw breath, as long as I feel this old heart stumble in my chest, as long as I can look upon this broken, beautiful world and remember, the candle still burns. The story isn't finished. The symphony, even in its final, solitary note, echoes,